are some people who are saying that's slowing down. We haven't seen that yet, thank God. But where this is going to go, I can't tell you. We still are having significant parts issues with all the manufacturers, where we're having delays in, and that's industry wide, in every industry. But we're seeing that as well. So it's really hard to say, okay, the back end's going to take care of things because the front end there is an inventory, but then you're having issues with the back end because there's no parts incoming. So I'm praying.
Parts has become a big issue as well, Bridget. You hit the nail on the head. I've talked to a couple of dealers. As a matter of fact, Ron and I spent time over at Gold Coast Cadillac last week and had a chance to meet with Bill Camastro, who's the managing partner in that store. And he talked about the same challenges. As a matter of fact, their entire the entire showroom was filled with used cars, not new vehicle inventory, because he only had 3 Escalades left in stock. That was the extent of his inventory level on the new vehicle side.
Well, I didn't want to out it, but GM is my manufacturer that has the least amount of inventory.
Yeah, well, that's a fact. I know that, from the feedback that I've gotten throughout the country, Ford and General Motors have really struggled with inventory, amongst the domestics. Chrysler seems to have handled it a bit better. I can't tell you as to why. I can just tell you that the inventory availability with the Chrysler stores that we currently work with has been pretty good. Dave, how do you see the next 12 months unfolding, my friend, from your perspective?
Muted. You're muted.
Yeah, hold on. You got to unmute your mic, buddy.
I think Bridget hit the nail on the head. I don't think anybody knows. It's and I don't know whether the manufacturers are lying. I'm not close to it like the dealers on the panel are. I will tell you from my business perspective, we have the same problem. We make, Sandy, we make products that have electronics in them. And we went from 4-week lead times to 3-month lead times, 4-month lead times. We went from products that used to cost us 10 cents, they now cost us $10.
Yep.
And we're buying stuff on the secondary market. So I will tell you that I see it getting better on our side. So I'm optimistic that it's going to get better for the car manufacturers and for the dealers out there.
Right.
But it's a struggle. It's a struggle on our business for sure. As you know, nobody wants to make investments, in their business when they're as uncertain as they are in terms of what the future might hold. So, I certainly hope that this isn't going to drag on much beyond the end of the year, for everyone's sake. But I don't have a crystal ball either, so who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. SJ, just curious, you operate from a different perspective than most folks out there because you own 3 Honda stores and you serve dealers throughout the country. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's going to end or approach the end mid next year. So, and that's what Honda is telling us. So I will say out of all the OEMs, I feel like Honda's done, not that they've done a great job, but I would say they've done a decent job, all things considered, from an inventory standpoint. They don't seem to be, Honda dealers, and I see this on the agency side, don't seem to be in such a bad spot like say Ford or GM. I know they're in worse spots than Honda. Not to say that Honda dealers have tons of inventory. We do not. We hardly have any, but it's better than none, and we are getting cars. So I just, having said that, what we care about most besides customer satisfaction and making sure we're providing good service and a good experience to customers, we are in a profit business. And I still hear most dealers doing quite well in that area. So, if it carries on to mid next year, okay, I'm pretty happy.
No, I agree.
So, at some point when we get cars, we're all going to race to the bottom again. So, it doesn't, I'm okay with, I'm okay with making some money in between.
I think everybody is. The record level of profitability is the bubble that we continue to refer to. And I really believe at some point in time, whether it's an immediate burst and we feel this shock experience, or it's something that dissipates over time, all good things come to an end, and everything that goes up must come down. So I really look at, what are going to be the ramifications of this thing short term over the next 12 months or so, and then longer term in the marketplace. Amberly, I'm curious, what kind of feedback are you hearing from your dealers?
Well, all my dealers, I would say that every new car they can get their hands on, they're selling, as quick as they can get their hands on them. I think used cars, they're seeing, they've been kind of stockpiling this used car inventory. But one interesting thing, I talked to a dealer the other day, and he said, I'd love to add some fuel to the fire as far as the marketing goes, but where I'm struggling in my inventory specifically is my special finance inventory. Mm-hmm. I've got a good set of used car inventory. It's not great, right? But it's not terrible. I've got no new car inventory, sell everything I can get my hands on. But I think the other tricky part is they're struggling to find that special finance inventory for those people that are trying to get something now. And so I think, just like everybody said, there's so many unknowns, but I have to say, I'm so wildly impressed by dealers' ability to adapt on the fly, right? Yeah. I mean, this is this ever-changing, ever-evolving issue, and I have to tell you, I couldn't be more impressed with the dealers out there today, just bobbing and weaving.
Yeah, well, their ability to pivot is what separates, the wheat from the chaff, as they say. I'm so happy to have my man BK, Brian Kramer, checking in. I know you had a little bit of a challenge getting to a secure location, but I want to thank you for joining us here today. Brian is the executive general manager over at Germain Toyota of Naples, and a real player. When we talk about somebody that's got their finger on the pulse, Brian comes to the tippy top of the list. Brian, what we're talking about right now is basically what each of the panel guests sees over the course of the next 12 months, whether it's an increase in business, a decrease, or a flat line. I happened to catch a post of yours on LinkedIn today that I thought was really appropriate, talking about sourcing pre-owned inventory out of your own database. I thought it was so damn spot on. You thin sliced for us the numbers that Carvana is actually posting right now with respect to how they're sourcing their used vehicle inventory, where they're not going to the auction. Talk a little bit about what you see over the course of the next 12 months in terms of the overall business, and then some of the things that you guys are doing to try and address it.
So the crazy thing is that, and I study them ad nauseum, but they are going to the auction. They're just going to the auction with our trades that we didn't put enough money in, and they're wholesaling them back to us as car dealers, which is the definition of insanity. So, and it's because of the cognitive bias that we still have to hold back on trades, and we've got to over allow on trades, and we've got to sit there and make it more complex than it needs to be. We really got to just, the more simple that it is, think Apple or all these other companies that we talk about, but the friction reduction, become a friction slayer, I guess. Yep. And the more simplify your process is, the more it's scalable, and the more that when the business does come back, whenever that is, let's say it's February, or depends on who you ask, but whenever that moment arrives, you can be that much more productive, and every single dollar that you make, that much more is going to drop to the bottom line because you got more automation. Less, I was just on a call with one of our, NCM 20 group partners from a company called ACAR, and he said, "Wow," he goes, "What's up with the F&I, increase?" And I said, "It's not actually an increase; it's a decrease in chargebacks due to lack of mistakes, because of digital doesn't allow you to do this and all this human error and all these things that what if I can do this, or what if I can do that?" If we just keep it simple, and whatever the market does, the market's going to do. You can't control that, but we can control the controllables, and we can control simplification of everything. Like Poro, what's up? But as long as we can keep everything simple, the more profitability is just going to skyrocket. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Mike's got a bandwidth issue from his vacation home in Florida, so that happens from time to time. But Brian, I could not agree with you more. Looking at your business differently, you touched upon something that I think is a challenge for any business, and that is when we're so set in our ways and we have all these habits, old habits that we have a hard time getting rid of or scrubbing our brain from. We got to relearn some of the things that are changing around us. And I just thought your post was spot on in terms of how you looked at where you placed the emphasis of your purchasing power decisions, right? So you talked about the fact that we're stepping up to buy those older age, higher mileage units when we should really step up for those younger vehicles that have lower clocks on them, that are more attractive in the marketplace. And if we're going to quote unquote overpay or pay more, pay a premium, that's the place to put our money. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and it makes sense. The more that we quit blasphemizing the competition and we learn from them, because you can learn something for everybody. It comes down to whoever's going to be able to execute it,
Yeah.
But when I found that my wife had filmed that, and I didn't even know what it was. I go through my Google Photos. It was from the Digital Dealer in April, and I remember after that presentation, a lot of people said, that's great, but let's see what happens next quarter, and it just keeps going up, because they've got sound fundamentals and they keep it simple, and everybody we all know that, what their stock was doing 12 months ago, because, they can't keep taking these losses. They can't, it's like in Jaws, you can't take down 3 barrels. There's no way, or 4 barrels, there's no way. But they were weathering the storm. No different than Amazon didn't turn a profit for 14 years.
Yep.
Or Uber is in the same boat right now. They're just reinvesting into their company, and they're not looking to make an immediate profit. They're looking for that slingshot flywheel effect, like in Good to Great, to where it starts spinning so fast that you can't stop it.
Well, I go to something that SJ says all the time. Scott says, what if you couldn't fail? What would you do? What would you attempt to do if you knew that you couldn't fail? And that gives us permission to actually go for something, right? To try something different and not worry about failure. I talked about it with Dave's team this morning. We talk about when we're making decisions, okay, whether it's a purchase decision or a decision to make a change or a pivot in our business, the single biggest thing that holds us back is fear of making a mistake or fear of making a bad decision. And the truth of the matter is we can recover from bad decisions. Okay, but this is a deeply rooted fear in every single one of us. And Dave, as you know, when we talked about it this morning and we talked about it on last week's call, I think it opens people's eyes as to how difficult it is for people to make a decision to make a change.
For sure.
No question. Let's talk a little bit about expense mediation, because when we talk about the ability to actually drive bottom line profitability, what we fail to realize very often, and this is Jay Abraham at his finest. And if you guys aren't familiar with who Jay Abraham is, all I can say is Google that shit, #GTS, Google Jay Abraham, and go take a look at his strategies in terms of exponentially looking at the geometric progression of profitability in your business. He talks about the fact that when you are able to save $1 in expense, what it really means in terms of the overall profitability in your business, it has a far bigger impact than when you increase revenue by $1. You guys are all familiar with Jay's philosophy with respect to that? Jay, Scott, you want to talk to that just a little bit, how important that piece of it is?
Well, if saving $1 is not worth more to you than making $1 on the top line, then you've got a very bad business model.
Yeah.
Because, or a very good one, I should say, actually. It would be nice if the top line equaled everything we sold for $1. It went straight to the bottom line, but that's not real world. So I had that reversed. I don't look, I'm the wrong one to talk to when it comes to managing. That's why I have Jamil. Yep. So, because I'm a top line, go after it guy. Now I expect the bottom line to be there, but I am aggressive on my marketing. I like to take chances with ideas. I test them. I do all those things. So, all right, let's go there. The best thing you can do, especially in an environment that is always changing, like the one we're in, is at some point, everyone's going to have to start marketing and getting aggressive again, trying to drive traffic. Right now, I think people have kind of plateaued on that, or not doing much, not changing much, and we don't have to as dealers because we're selling everything we have, and we're making good profits. But the reality is, at some point, that's going to start to shift, and you'll have decisions to make, and there's going to be a downside to it, because there are dealers out there that have not taken their foot off the gas when it comes to marketing and advertising, and those people are gaining hidden market share. You just haven't seen it yet because you have reduced inventory, but they're growing in market share, and they will, especially when inventory returns. So where I was going with that is this: the easiest way to save money, especially as it relates to marketing and advertising, is to make sure you test before dip your toe in before you dive in. to anything you're doing.
So that's a great point. Can you give us a specific example that dealers can take away in terms of how you test? Talk about maybe an A/B test or testing different taglines, headlines, or content, et cetera.
Well, all right. So let's say from an agency standpoint at J&L, we take on a new digital client. If the client has or wants to have a budget of $10,000 a month, $20,000, whatever it is, it's not smart to start there. It's smart to start, especially in digital marketing. It's smart to start very small.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And work your way and build your way up as you see what's working and what is not working. It's easier to adjust, because the opposite view is to throw 10, 20, whatever it would be, and then all of a sudden realize at the end of a week, a month, whatever, that you've wasted or thrown away $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Yep.
Whereas in digital marketing, it is so quick to just recognize quickly what is effective and build or improve on that, and eliminate a smaller amount of what's not working. So that would be the easiest way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we talk about, why a dollar saved
Bridget,
is.
hold on. I think.
Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, I just have two offshoots on that, Sandy. One is, all right, SEM, search engine marketing right now, digital marketing. A lot of dealers do not have inventory. So they have these budgets, let's say they're $5, $10, $15, $20, whatever $1,000 they have associated to that. And they're, your digital marketer unto themselves are not going to be like, oh, well, maybe I should reduce that or shift that to another bucket. They're not going to do that on their own. You kind of need to tell them, hey, blowing that money out the car window is really dumb right now.
Mm-hmm.
Show me the clicks, show me what we're really doing here, and then shift it. Maybe you pull that budget back. Maybe you shift it a little bit to branding. Maybe you shift it to service, but it sure as hell shouldn't be on new vehicles that you don't have in your lot.
Yeah, I think you make a great point with respect to shifting that budget to areas where you can actually see a definitive ROI. You talk about branding, and I think that's where Scott was going, that the dealers that maybe don't have new vehicle inventory, which is basically every one of them, are shifting their budgets to areas within the operation where they can maximize ROI right now, but they're also putting a piece of it towards branding because they know that they still want to be the top of the mind decision, or have an opportunity to be the top of the mind decision for the customer when the time comes to purchase or lease a newer pre-owned vehicle, right? So I think your point is spot on with respect to shifting towards a more brand-focused marketing plan. BK, you seeing the same thing by you? What have you guys done?
So there's been an evolution of the whole thing, but I think that right now, more important than ever, you got to be agile, and you've got to be able to move and maneuver. And it's very much like, what do they call the General McChrystal book, Team of Teams? He was saying that, it used to be just rank and file and tanks going into Iraq or whatever, and just typical, traditional warfare. And at some point they had to get decentralized and empower their teams. I mean, that's really the playbook of what dealerships should be doing, is small groups. And in that group of commandos or whatever, you've got a frogman, and they're cross-trained. They can do different things. You've got a sniper, you've got an infantryman, you've got a demolitions expert. You've got different people that can maneuver within the group, and they prioritize and execute. And they know what the top 3 priorities are, and then they execute regardless of what outside conditions change. So to answer your question, if you've got a crew like that and you're maneuvering down through, whatever, Afghanistan, they know what's expected of them. They know cover and move and all the things that go along with it. But you've also got to look at our advertising like that. Right now, our new car inventory is down. Okay, so good. I'm going to go over and I'm going to advertise used. I'm going to go advertise service, but service can do the same thing. The rubber trees, I just heard about this a couple of days ago. And now there's because of what EPA or somebody, that's going to be the next big thing. And then you're going to have wiper blades, tires, and gaskets, and anything made out of rubber is going to be, fan belts. So that's going to be, because they're using them all in Afghanistan, it looks like on the news. So whatever it is they're doing with them, you're going to have a shortage of these products. You're going to have to be able to, then when that happens, pivot to, used cars, or back when new cars comes back or whatever. You can't be just so traditional anymore you've got to be creative. And you've got to be able to adapt to whatever's coming at you, because it's going to stay like this for a long time. And you're going to have to be just very resilient and very, elastic, I guess. What we're doing is we're breaking down our process now. We're taking the steps of our process, and instead of just, and I'm rewriting our process manual with a lot of input from the team. And as we're doing that, because it's changed just in the last 3 months, as we're doing that, I'm not just going to do a manual for the team. I'm doing one for the community. And I'm just going to take our internal sales process and I'm going to advertise it to the whole world and just pull the curtain back and say, hey, here it is.
Bro, that is so
surgery.
DC. I tell you, that you just took me back to 2008, 2009 NADA convention in one of Grant's workshops, where he talked about the fact if you wouldn't advertise your selling process, then you shouldn't be using it.
And just like in whatever the Wizard of Oz, once they realize that there's nothing going on, it's not rocket surgery. We're not trying to land on the moon. We're just trying to sell some cars, and we're not gonna need to have word tracks. Yep. What's the word? I want to know what my trade's worth. Okay, here's the link. Give me your cell phone number. Now you're getting PII, and you can market to them. And that's really, Scott's point. The future that I think of marketing is who are you going to market to if you don't have the first name, last name, email address, and cell phone number? Those four, instead of trying to write a whole novel, whatever, when you get those four critical elements of marketing, I'll tell you to Scott, what can you do with that data?
A lot. A lot. And I've been trying to, there's other data out there too that we're trying to get, but this guy on the screen over here, I'm waiting on him. But, the day of reckoning, first off, I wish Michael Porro was on here. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but
he's having a bandwidth. He's got a bandwidth issue. It keeps kicking him out.
It looks like he's sitting on a couch made of like Bentley leather with the diamond cut. Wait a minute. Here he comes in. Hold on.
He's surrounded by fine leather-bound books, and it's freaking a nice guy.
He is. I mean, he's sitting down there in a place. It looks like he's sitting in some type of. He took a bunch of Bentleys and just made a couch out of it. It looks nice with the diamond cut in there, and so. But the day with dealers, it's going to be interesting. I think for all of us in about 2 or 3 months, and I say that for this. I'm not talking about on the front end. I'm talking about in service. Summer's always busy. And right now we're selling everything we can get. We're holding gross. All our service departments are jam-packed. But what's been going on since March of 2020 is people have not been driving as much as they normally do. All right. Which means their frequency for requiring service isn't obviously as often as it usually is on average. And we're about to get out of summer, and it will be interesting to see how far off our revenue and our service drives drop off compared to where they are now. I just feel like that's going to be the first sign. We talk about bubble bursting. I think that will be the first thing that happens, and it could be as early as October. There's a reason all the OEMs do a heavy marketing towards service in October, November.
Yeah, no question. I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you, we're talking, I want to go just circle back to the expense side of things, because it's something I think is critically important to make sure that we hammer home, that when you're able to actually save $1 in terms of your expense structure, that it's got an exponentially larger impact on your profitability than just increasing your revenue by $1. They both have an impact on your profitability, but I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure you got your expenses in line, and you're constantly focusing on ways that you can reduce and relieve expense. So much so that, Ron and I have tackled this topic over the course of the last 2 months or so and sought out ways that we can actually help dealers do that. We're talking about things like commercial solar, where people have been very hesitant to do commercial solar in the past. They're now taking a look at it for a couple of different reasons. They're looking at it because, and Brian Kramer, you and I talked about this, and we'll talk about our conversation in just a second, but commercial solar becomes an incredibly lucrative opportunity for dealers for multiple different reasons. Number one, it's an opportunity to reduce one of the largest expenses on the docket, which is your energy expense. Okay. It also, in many states, provides some level of tax benefit. Certainly, nationally, you've got a investment tax credit of 26% through the end of this year, and I think for the foreseeable. We've got administration in the White House that's focused on green energy initiatives, and so there are a lot of opportunities with commercial solar to impact your bottom line expenses, but also increase the impact that it has on your financial statement immediately with that investment tax credit of 26%. Plus, you get accelerated depreciation that you can take from 1 to 6 years, in terms of your tax returns. So we've looked for someone to partner with. We found a company called Suntuity based out of New Jersey. It's one of the larger national players on the scene, and they do it in a way that nobody else does. And so we have information on the website that people can go to for that as well. But Brian, you and I talked about commercial solar and what's happening with respect to ISO 15001, correct? With respect to Toyota and Lexus?
Correct. So obviously that's going to be the next big thing with everybody in terms of when you can't advertise price, down payments, the biggest discounts, the best of this, been doing this the longest or whatever, all those other claims, you're going to have different hooks.
Yep.
So with us, we're going after community. What does the community want? Like in Naples, it's a blue zone. So giving back to the community, we're planting trees. We're finding other ways not to, saving expense is a byproduct of it, but the manufacturers are all, Toyota's, I think, just out ahead of it, but they're all going to be hammering that pretty hard. But another side benefit that got me to accelerate it much sooner is your CapEx expenditure obviously affects your allocation. So
Correct.
whatever you can commit to spending, so a little side, benefit now. Obviously, when you got the most profit coming in, it's never a good time to sit there and try to think about lighting and all that other stuff. The technology's gone so far, but I'm not going to mislead anybody. My number one priority here was to try to earn more allocation. If I can help the environment in the process, that's an added bonus.
Yeah, no question. The point I think we want to make sure people understand is that it is a real opportunity to save yourself some money, and actually you can flatline your energy expense, but you also have all these other benefits with the ITC, with respect to the marketing opportunity, with accelerated depreciation. It's something else that we can talk about, and it's the responsible play within your community. So it's a great point. The other thing we looked at,
we're all going to have a why buy with a lot of other things like that. What do we add? What are we giving back? What are we doing for the community? We donate money to carbon footprint initiatives.
Absolutely.
It's going to have to fill something.
There's no question about it. It's not as a matter of if, it's a matter of when you make the decision to start looking at these opportunities in these platforms. And as I put on the bottom of the screen here, if you want more information, just give Ron a quick email at ron@sandyceramic.com. He'll share it with you. We talk about, right now there's a liquidity play for dealers that are looking at this market and saying the multiples that are being paid are the highest that we've ever seen by far. I think you're seeing that, Scott, David, Bridget, Brian. You're hearing stories about acquisitions that are actually closing at multiples that are just head scratchers for us. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of money out there right now in the marketplace. There are some dealers that are looking at an opportunity to liquidate and take their chips off the table. But there's other dealers out there that don't want to sell right now. They look at this as a long-term opportunity for themselves. And so we went and looked at what's another way to do this. We actually partnered with an ESOP platform out of Manhattan. Very, very bright guys. And it's a way for dealers to actually take advantage of a program right now where these max multiples that are in the marketplace make it easier to borrow the capital necessary to execute on an ESOP. But there's, again, tremendous tax advantages for dealers, and they can maintain control of their business while taking significant chips off the table in terms of the value of their business without affecting liquidity, without affecting the performance of the business. It actually works as a positive when you have buy-in where everybody feels like they've got ownership in the business as well. Let's talk a little bit about where we see assets that we already own, where we can increase ROI. David, I'm going to speak right to you right now because your technology and data platform at TPI helps dealers maximize the return on investment for something I think gets often overlooked in the service department, and that is the alignment rack. When I walk through, and Ron knows it, he's going to laugh. If I walk through a service department and I see an alignment rack empty, I asked this one simple question to the service or fixed operations director, and that is, how do you feel about an empty service bay? And the answer is always, it frustrates the hell out of me. I know we're losing money. And so my next question is, well, why would you allow the same thing to happen on the alignment rack? That alignment rack should be busy 24/7, 365 if you're open. And it's an opportunity for you to actually maximize your return on your investment there. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about alignments as we see them impacting retention and profitability?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's more than just alignments, though. I think it's the whole service factor in this. And, you know, if we got time at the end, I'd love to come back to the whole expense conversation that you were having, because, you know, I'm a big Jay Abraham fan, but I think there's some service angles in this that don't, in fact, fit that criteria in terms of $1 earned versus $1 saved. You know, our fixed operations are called fixed for a reason, right? The vast majority of the expense there is fixed, and any add-on sales that you can get in your service department, most of that does go right to the bottom line.
Yep.
And tires and alignments, you know, that's our game, but anything in service right now is a big opportunity. But as Bridget said, you know, there's a parts issue right now, which is why we've been focusing on alignments, because for the most part, it doesn't take any parts. It's all
Correct.
Correct. And most dealers are utilizing their alignment rack at less than 20%. So, you know, if you want a quick fix in your service department, sell more alignments. I mean, it's not rocket science. And there's an 80% or more potential upside, depending on the dealer. And the biggest problem that dealers don't have is they don't understand the opportunity, which is what we help them do, right? We help them identify the opportunity so that they can, maximize on that and try to, keep those racks busy. And if most dealers understood the real size of the opportunity, it'd be a head scratcher. I mean, there's most good sized dealers need 3 or 4 alignment racks, not 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity is so great. It's just, that's a massive, massive opportunity for every dealer. One other point I want to make before we move on, just on service profitability in general. Sandy, as you know, my business is somewhat unique because I service both new car dealers, which is the largest side of my business, but I also service the aftermarket. And something that someone said earlier on in terms of, where's this traffic coming from and what's the long-term impact? I think it was you, Sandy, is going to be, on our service drives down the road. 3 of the biggest publicly traded entities in the aftermarket, Driven Brands, which is minus Jiffy Lube, which is part of Shell Corporation, and Monroe, which used to be Monroe Muffler and Brake up in Rochester. All 3 of them just reported the biggest quarters they've had in the last 5 years.
Yep.
In the middle of what is still a pandemic and a vehicle shortage. And doesn't take a genius to figure out why that is. If people can't buy cars, they're keeping the ones they've got longer. And they need to get things fixed. And unfortunately, those higher mileage vehicles are, for the most part, ending up, in the aftermarket. And that's a huge opportunity for every dealer out there, is to try to get some of that higher mileage business back in your service departments and not let it get out to the aftermarket in the first place.
Well, it's funny, Dave, because, I talk to people on both sides of this equation as well, dealers as well as independent operators. And you'd be shocked at how many independent shops don't even have an alignment rack. Okay. Sure. And to me, that speaks to a tremendous opportunity to take a look at all the independents. Where do they set up? And Bridget, you know this, because if we were to drive around Morristown, or Fairview, for God's sakes, on 1 and 9, all these independent shops are sitting there. None of them have made the investment in an alignment rack. And so what I might be doing if I was a dealer was going and knocking on each one of these doors or having my service manager or my fixed operations director do that and let them know we'd like to be the one that handles all the alignments that you can't handle. All right. It's added value for you. We'll give your customers a special offer. And by the way, that's the Trojan horse for getting your customers back into your damn service drive as opposed to the independents. Now, Dave, I don't want to queer the relationship that you have with independents, but the truth of the matter is they're taking our customers, and this is an opportunity for us to actually fight back a little bit on the new vehicle dealer side.
For sure. And I mean, listen, I'm first and foremost, we support the dealers and we also support the aftermarket, but there's plenty of work to go around. And like you said, there's a lot of work out there that the aftermarket doesn't do. The largest per square foot, the most profitable and largest tire retailer in the industry is a company out of Scottsdale, Arizona called Discount Tire. And what's amazing is they're only in about 12 states. and they're the most profitable organization out there. They don't do alignments.
Yep.
They don't do brakes. They don't do anything but tires.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's amazing to me. And
well, that's that speaks to core competency, knowing your niche in the marketplace. Scott loves to talk about niches, and he's right. You find a niche, and you develop a reputation for being the player in that niche, and look what happens. You're known for that specifically.
I like to talk about niches.
Niches.
You like to talk about niche.
Well, that's because I'm a little bit more of an aristocrat and highly evolved, Scott. Hey, we've got Michael Poro, and I think, Michael, I don't know if you can hear us. Yeah, he's having bandwidth issues. I'm disappointed.
I apologize.
Oh, there he is.
We've been going in and out, and I'll tell you what.
Yep, we lost him. I'm sorry, guys. I know that Michael's made a huge investment in terms of equipment and whatnot. And I know that he and David are actually having a conversation right now. And I think that conversation just needs to continue, because the opportunity with respect to not just going to the indies to do their alignments, but also going to the independent used car dealers that are around us is also an opportunity too. They're reconditioning their vehicles. They're bringing their vehicles to probably either a independent shop that's in their neighborhood, or they've got a small shop that does not have an alignment rack either. I just look at these opportunities and say it's such low-hanging fruit. Just go ask for the business. Scott, your thoughts? I'm curious.
Well, it goes to leveraging so it's not leveraging an asset, right? You're leveraging an opportunity there. And so this last topic that you're talking about is how do we leverage what we've got? If I've got someone in service, I want to leverage that opportunity and upsell or cross-sell, not selling things they don't need, but obviously make sure that everything they do need, whether that's, just from a profit standpoint, but from a customer's thing, from a safety standpoint, make sure they have everything that they absolutely need and get, or at least advised of it. When you leverage, the biggest asset a dealer has is their previous customer data. And I would never recommend to sell that data. Obviously, you can't do that, but you can form strategic alliances with non-competing businesses.
Yep.
For instance, I'm a Honda dealer, and in our community, we have a motorsport type Honda dealer, that brand, and we can do joint marketing efforts where they market to their customer base, offering discounts to us, and vice versa. Yep. So it's a way to have strategic alliances with other businesses where we're still leveraging the asset that I have, and they would be leveraging the asset that they have, and trying to get new business. So that would be an idea. But we have to find a way to leverage the things we have. I'm trying to there are all kinds of little opportunities within the store that we don't think of. We get too busy. It takes a little effort. That clearly takes effort, because you got to sell the other business owner on the idea first, and then make sure and coordinate that in a way that it gets done. Mm-hmm. But there's all kinds of opportunities, I think, like that. If you look at, we've had David Spizak, we've talked to him several times. If you listen to the first thing he did from a strategic alliance standpoint when he made his huge jumps in net was coordinating with the various charities around his Absolutely. Dealership and working out a joint venture strategic alliance with them. So he was getting tons of referrals. So there's all kinds of ways to do this.
Yeah, I know Bridget has done the same thing in her market, where she's really partnered with a number of charities in her community, and it's made a difference. She's been able to leverage not only the fact that she's actually contributing, but also the exposure, the additional marketing opportunities that she's gotten. You want to talk about it a little bit, Bridget?
Yeah, we do a lot of work with Habitat for Humanity is our biggest one, but smaller ones, Table of Hope, which is a local charity that feeds the community here. We pretty much, the Morris Education Foundation, which Morristown is a big community, and we get out to all of the kids' parents, right? Mm-hmm. And the way I always looked at it is these charities usually don't have advertising budgets. So when you go to them and say, hey, I really want to promote you, and it's coming from a genuine place, they're like, all day long, yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Yeah. And they need help right now for sure. I think it's just a feel good opportunity, but it's not just a feel good opportunity. It's an opportunity to really make a difference. And I think people are looking for that. They want to be part of a bigger story and a bigger cause.
Sandy, if I can just tell one other story. A few years ago, we partnered with a company called Fly Nyan, which is a helicopter company that does doors off experiences around New York City, right? They fly, do helicopter flights. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, do you want to do some sort of partnership where, I'll pay for all of the advertising, but give me tickets so that I can do some sort of a raffle for the month. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. Absolutely. And if you look at them on Instagram, their following is bananas. Like they have a fantastic presence, which was what I was.
I think content is not a problem for them if they got a camera inside the helicopter.
Yeah, right. I mean, the context tends ridiculous. So we went and we did the event, which was amazing. We did a shoot and we did commercials, which were, the amazing content. And when we were going up, the helicopter pilot said, you are so damn smart, because Maserati had come in and they spent like $100,000 to do a similar thing. And I'm like, they should have just partnered with them, right? But they didn't want the additional name on there.
Exactly.
It cost me nothing to have that additional name on
Absolutely.
there, and that's that entrepreneurial pivot that you guys were talking about earlier. We're a little smarter than the average bear.
No question. Well, it's funny because we had a team this morning on a Zoom, and we talked specifically about finding those strategic alliances, those strategic partnerships where you don't have competitive overlap and you share a potential audience or a market, and you can add value to each other by working together. And I think that's what Scott's, really driving at, is that there are cost savings benefits there that you just alluded to, Bridget, as well. You get to appear even bigger than you may be in the marketplace. And again, I think, when you take a look at the assets that you already own, and Scott, to your point, your customer base is an asset for certain. I look at it, an investment in a alignment machine or any other pieces of equipment as an investment in an asset that you got to have a return on. And so you have to be looking at ways to maximize the return on those assets, because it ultimately impacts the net profitability in your store. You've already made the CapEx expenditure, and now it's just a matter of wringing out every opportunity to ring the register that you possibly can. And again, to your point, Scott, we're not looking to sell something that a vehicle doesn't need, but we're making sure we're conveying the information effectively to the driver so they can make the best decision possible for themselves about maintaining and keeping their vehicle in great working condition. And that's, I think, what we were talking about, Dave, this morning. Putting information into the hands of the consumer.
It also goes to the client and customer relationship, right? If they are a client, you're trying to protect and do what's best for them. But can I ask Bridget a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So I'll set this up with why I'm asking it. So, we've brought up Jay Abraham. One of the big things that he loves to promote is to work out strategic alliances with direct competitors. And that would be that, all right, here I am, a Honda dealer, and I've got a Nissan store, a Chevy store down the road, Ford. I got all the stores down the road, right? And I can't sell this guy, and he tells me that he wants to also look at a Ford. So why wouldn't I refer him to the Ford guy and my contact there, and as a dealer get a bonus, depending on what state you're in, or a bird dog, right? Wherever it's legal to get that back. So dealers are too competitive to do that. That probably won't happen. However, Richard, you have multiple rooftops. You have multiple brands. Do you have relationships within the rooftops to make sure that if I come on your lot and I don't like this, especially right now with inventory shortages where some consumers may just want something, right? Do you guys have relationships within, or do they just compete against each other straight up and that's the way it is?
So, and Sandy can tell you, I allow all my salesmen, saleswomen on all of my floors to sell whatever we have. Yep. So they absolutely do that 100%, and they're all over it. But to your point, I mean, we do have relationships with Maserati and BMW and Porsche, and I have relationships with all of those dealers, and I absolutely would hand a customer over to them because I'm not selling that client, right? If they want a Range Rover, they're probably not. Although the Wagoneer coming out, we have a special event in September. You should check it out. But you know, they're probably not going to stay with my brand, and absolutely, I'll kick that over. And by the way, they kick it back. So
yeah. I love the point that you're making, Scott, and Bridget is spot on. She's done that since she got started over there in Morristown, where she had that opportunity. They have always cross-sold. She recognized that, very quickly. It's a great question. And that's exactly what I was referring to before about going to the independent used car dealer around you and also the independent shop that doesn't have that alignment rack available to them. You want to be the one that can actually accomplish what they cannot do and establish that level of trust or strategic relationship.
So,
we just lost Michael. I wanted to bring him in on this point because Michael is part of AMSI, Terry Taylor's group out in Louisville, and they've got a number of different dealerships on their campus. And I wanted to see what his take on that was. If he can jump back in here, I'll certainly bring him in.
Well, we're waiting, Scott. Let me just, or Sandy, let me just jump one thing that Scott was saying.
Sure.
So one of my biggest customers is a little oil company called Valvoline. And Valvoline Instant Oil Care Centers don't do tires, don't do alignments. They don't do anything but tires. And they're my largest customer. And most people look at that and can't figure out how that makes sense. Now, Valvoline figured out that they've got a partnership asset that they didn't even realize they had, and that's customer needs when they come in for an oil change. They are looking for tire and alignment opportunities, and they're selling those leads to dealers and other independents around each of their instant oil caves.
That's Jay Abraham right there.
I mean, it's brilliant.
It's Jay Abraham, to the nth degree. I love that, by the way. We got Michael Poro here. Michael, I know you're having bandwidth issues. I apologize, buddy. We're talking about, sharing opportunities with quote unquote competitors, whether they're outside competitors or internal competitors. You're on a campus in Louisville with a number of other stores that are part of your group, correct?
That is correct.
So how do you guys handle when somebody comes in and they're looking for a competitive make or model that's not a Honda, or you can't satisfy on your pre-owned inventory, or you don't have what they're looking for in your pre-owned inventory? Do you share those with the other dealers on your campus that are part of the group? I guess we're going to have to wait for the answer on that one. Okay. This is like jumping the shark. We cut it right off in the middle. Fonzie had the leather coat on. And
if Michael was to sell some of that Bentley furniture that he has, he could upgrade his Wi-Fi.
I want to bring him on just so we could give him a hard time about that right now. Here he comes. Hey, Michael, Scott is just, and I'm defending you just so you know. Scott's talking about the fact that you haven't paid your internet bill, and that's why you're having such a tough time with the connection. I defended you, though. Yeah, it's tough.
Well,
listen.
In the case, I knew I could always depend on you, phone. Hey, Sandy.
I feel terrible for him.
I know.
Listen, it's a shame because Michael is one of the sharpest operators out there. I love his take on the business. As a matter of fact, I'm going to quote him. Michael says it all the time, but that fast, simple, and fun gets done. And so I want to give Michael a plug there. His dealership is the #1 Honda dealership in Kentucky, in the entire state. At one point in time, I think they were the #1 dealership, regardless of brand, in the entire state. And I know that he and his team are looking to reclaim that crown. Here he is.
We reclaimed it for new cars, and we're working on reclaiming it for used cars.
I love it. I love it.
The thing that I find funny is, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody on that's on the broadcast here, but what's this about? We're going to have a problem. I mean, a problem is only a problem if you accept it's a problem.
Yeah, he's right. And so what we're really talking about ultimately is when the bubble bursts, what are we going to do? Because there are opportunities out there, but we've got to be looking at our businesses differently. And that was the whole method behind the madness here today with the next big thing. I get the question all the time. Ron's been at my right side for the last 6 months plus, and we've been in and out of multiple different dealerships, multiple different markets around the country. We get the same question every time, Ron, correct?
Yeah. What's the next big thing, Sandy, as we travel? And it's true.
and every time we hear the question asked, we look at each other and kind of laugh. So much of what we've covered here today, Ron and I have been discussing for the last few months. And so I want to do this. We're coming up on about 50 minutes. We're going to wrap here in just a second. I want to thank everybody, first of all, for taking the time and being generous in terms of your insight and what you're doing right now. And ultimately, as we said before, if you do have more questions and you want to rewatch or share this, you can go to the nextbubble.now.site. We've got a free white paper download that you can get. We'll answer any questions that you have. If you hit ron@sandycerami.com or sandy@sandycerami.com, either way, happy to answer the questions that they have. Bridget, any final thoughts before we close out here today?
I think that, first of all, great group. So thank you for inviting me on and being part of this panel. I am humbled. But I think that not hesitating to push back on your manufacturers and say, hey, you got us in these 5 programs that are $500 a month. What's the deal with that? Can we take 1 or 2 off? What about, GM has SFE, that's 20 grand a year. Are they giving you the inventory necessary in order to hit your number? If not, you better go back to them and say, hey, you're not doing your part.
It's a great point.
You need to lower that number or give us that 20 grand or 5 grand or whatever it is back. So I think that it's really important to leverage those kind of things and all, the basics. Go through your uniform contracts. Go through every single contract you have and make sure that you are optimizing and getting the bills down as far as you can, because if you can save that dollar, you need to save that dollar. One of the things that the staff jokes with me about is it seems like every time an employee leaves, they take a damn stapler with them, and staplers are like $30 a pop.
Yeah.
So it's stupid stuff like that. But like a $30 stapler, if you do the multiple, it costs you how much in gross to do that $30 stapler. So it's all the small expenses. If you can, make sure that you're tightening things up as much as you can, that's great. And make sure that your people are aware of it. They're aware of it. They know. They just need to hear it again once in a while. It's always great when you put on the whiteboard and do that calculation of the gross and how much it takes in gross for you to get that dollar. The last time we did it here, it was like, I want to say it was like $1,100-$1,200. It took us $1,100-$1,200 to get a single dollar in gross, So that when they see that, it's a lot different, as well as all of the, healthcare expenses and insurance expenses and all those kind of things. You got to work with your vendors and say, I know you're hurting, but we're hurting too. We need you to come down. So that's what I would say about that. And thank you, Steve.
No, listen, I thank you for taking the time, and you make a great point, Bridget. When we talk about what does it really mean to save a dollar? Well, if you take a look at, if you're operating in a 5% net to sales, okay, and some stores are operating above that right now with the kind of climate that we have. For every $500 that you save, that's like earning another $10,000 in revenue, right? And that's why I say that you have to take a look and understand it, how saving money in your operation impacts your operation in terms of a net profit, okay? And so I appreciate you taking the time, Bridget. How about you, SJ? Anything to close out with here?
No, I'm just thankful that you invited me on. I appreciate it. Bridget, great meeting you. Always good seeing you, David. Ron, awesome. And then, Sandy, it is what it is seeing you.
Yeah. Well, buddy, first of all, I'm going to be seeing more of you. And I've already started a therapy session with a head shrinker, because I know I'm going to see you in September, twice in November. God knows if we're going to see each other more than that. But what I really want to focus on is Business Bourbon and Cigars coming up here in January 2022. And I'm excited because we're going to have an unbelievable event. The last one that we had in June, and David was there, Ron was there, you were there, Scott. It was as good as advertised, if not better. And we've gotten tremendous feedback. And you and I have done some postmortems with Arnold Casita, who I want to have on our next panel. He's the CEO of Petra Oil Company. And so ultimately, I'm looking forward to January 2022 for what I would consider to be a no holds barred event somewhere in South Florida. So we're looking forward.
It'll either be late January, probably that third week of January, or that first week of February.
Yeah,
I'm
looking forward to it. Dave Boyle, anything to add before we close it out? Oh, we got to unmute you. There we go.
One of the things I've been saying to dealers a lot lately is to imagine their business without Carvana. Imagine their business without the aftermarket. Imagine your business with all those things, because all those things are there because of us. They don't. They're not selling new. Carvana's not selling new cars. The aftermarket's not servicing new cars. They don't sell cars at all. All those businesses were created because of gaps or leaks in our business model.
Fact.
And what I'm trying to convince dealers right now, dealers are making record profits right now, as we all know. And in my opinion, now's the time, and maybe this is a bit self-serving being a vendor, but now's the time to invest. We're not as busy as we were, but we're making more money than we ever have. Now's the time to double down, in my opinion, and invest in your business and try to figure out how you can plug some of those leaks. And I think the dealers that aren't afraid to make those types of investments right now are the ones that have come up the other side of this miles ahead of everybody else.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And it's your opportunity actually to maximize ROI on every dollar invested. You're never going to have an opportunity like we have today in order to do that. Mr. Marvelous Ron Marvo, the man, the myth, and the Marvelocity legend. Anything to add before we close it out?
Obviously appreciate just being on the panel and listening to everybody's input on our 3 questions, that we obviously keep hearing as we've been talking about. My only input would be, and, more actually to hear feedback on this, but the dealership consolidation, storm of conversation that I've been hearing out there by 2025, 1 in every 5 dealerships is going to experience some form of consolidation, in any type of way, whether on the front end, back end, or a mix, or even having to shrink. And we see, the Lithias, the AutoNations, the Group 1s, picking up dealerships right now. So it'd be interesting to see who takes advantage of a lot of these different things that allow for, mitigation of expenses, looking for bigger returns on their investments, and just investing in the things like David said, and taking the chance to optimize their business, so We'll see what happens. And it's, definitely have a group of people here that aren't scared to take the risk.
No, there's no question about it. So we'll close it out with this very simple piece of relative experience, that there's always good times, there's always bad times, there's opportunity in both. And so we wanted to share with the audience today ways that they can take advantage of down cycles, as well as what we're on right now, which is an incredible economic ride. Again, visit thenextbubble.now.site. We've got more information over there. For those of you that want to hold on to control of your dealership or want to take some chips off the table, as Ron was alluding to, and you don't want to sell to any of the consolidators out there, the ESOP play is huge. We've got a tremendous partnership with CGI out of Manhattan, and so we're happy to make an introduction for you. But any of the information that you want, we can get to you. Just hit Ron at sandycerami.com or Sandy at sandycerami.com, or hit thenextbubble.now.site. In the meantime, we're going to step up to stand out. And guys, we are out. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you.